Hello again, everyone. This is Doug Spoon with Menifee 24/7. Hope that you're having a good day and that you're staying safe during this whole COVID-19 pandemic. We've been reporting on all aspects of that, and one of those is the high school sports situation. And we're privileged to have as a guest today the commissioner of the CIF Southern Section, Rob Wigod. Thank you for joining us today, Rob.
Well, thanks, Doug. Great to be with you, and I appreciate being invited.
So I know this has probably been unlike any year you've ever gone through in preparing for the next fall sports season. And it seems that the situation kind of changes every day. There's different guidelines going out. Can you just kind of tell me the process that you're going through in preparing for fall sports, if you think it's going to start on time, or will there even be a fall sports season?
Well, yes, and I think that's going to be real important for people to understand that first and foremost, that all options are on the table. And that has really been the focus that we've had ever since we had to unfortunately cancel the spring sports, is that we've been completely working on scenarios and different ways that we can make sure and have fall, winter, and spring sports back during this upcoming 2020-2021 school year. So right now, there's a calendar in place. It's the calendar in place we had for fall sports, and it will remain there until the time comes where we don't believe that we're able to make that happen in the typical window that you would have for fall sports. But then again, I want to repeat that means we would go forward with still trying to deliver fall, winter, and spring sports seasons at a later time. The idea would not be to cancel the fall season and then immediately start focusing on when we might be able to implement a winter season. We would want people to understand that we're gonna go with fall sports, the traditional window, as long as we can. But that if we can't, that we're still going to stay focused on fall, winter, and spring, and look forward on when that might be able to be done within the same confines of this upcoming school year.
Okay, so I know that would be a challenge then for students that play multiple sports. It would be kind of hard to continue the fall sports too long without endangering the winter sports. So that means maybe each sport might be a little bit shorter. Is that right?
Well, you're right. It would need to be condensed in a smaller window, and you certainly want to make sure that you have enough space between those seasons so that the multiple sport athlete does get the opportunity to participate. If they're too closely bunched, then obviously you lose a lot of opportunity to do that. So I hope people would realize that yes, it would be a smaller overall time frame to do all three seasons, but there would hopefully be appropriate separations between those seasons to let students be in more than one sport. And the thing that everyone should remember is that you must have viable league play. We must have a length of season that will incorporate league play so that leagues can do their job of identifying participants for our playoffs, and then we would take it from there. So obviously, if you're looking at typical timeframes of a season, you'll know that it's at minimum league play, and we'd certainly want more than that, some obvious preseason games and other things to help prepare for league. But that's what would be required to make a viable season happen. And as I mentioned, if we need to go in that direction, I just don't want people to go back to what we had to do, which was cancel an entire season of the spring. We don't want to do that. We want to go to a point where fall can't happen in a time frame in the typical fall, that we do want to look at a fall, winter, and spring going forward versus just forgetting about the fall season and working on the others.
Right. So do you have a time frame? Is there a drop dead date when you've got to decide when this fall season would start?
Yes, we do, and that's going to be coming closer and closer in terms of crystallizing what the timeframes would be. We have a commissioners meeting coming up on June 9th. We've been in contact with commissioners and the state office uh, consistently since this has all begun. And so
Mhm.
we've been working on these different scenarios. Our staff has been working tremendously hard on different scenarios and calendars and so forth. And once we come out of that commissioners meeting on June 9, I think we're going to have a better idea of what the most workable plans would be and scenarios would be, and then get closer to start formulating a plan to make announcements on what's going to happen. Because it isn't just about the fall and the other sports calendars. There's other issues that we've been discussing related to financial hardship, related to academic eligibility with so many of our schools and districts going to pass fail or credit no credit. There's also kind of an issue with pre-participation physicals where, some of the ability to get those physical exams prior to students competing in athletics at this moment is not as easy maybe as it has been. So we want to make sure that we're trying our best to discuss further potential solutions to issues and not be a barrier. That's a very important point that I want to make. The CIF, we need to be responsible, and we need to be receptive, and we need to be open-minded about this real scenario we're living in and the real situations that people are going through. And our goal needs to be the person opening doors and providing opportunities, which is what we always do. But we certainly don't want to see the difficulties people have had be even extended further, where students are not eligible, we don't get the ability to have them back. That's not at all where we want to be. We want to make sure that we're not going to be barriers to the resumption of what we love to do and what we know people love that we do.
Right. I know that there are so many factors involved, and that the state is discussing some guidelines where possibility students would have to wear face coverings in class. And I mean, how would that kind of thing translate over to contact sports? That seems like quite a leap.
It is, and there's going to be a way this will roll out, and you've already alluded to it. The schools are going to open, and unlike we had in the spring, where so many of our schools, when they initially shut down, they had target dates they were hoping to reopen, let's say in April or whatever, and then it just got completely away from all of our schools, and they did not open for the rest of the school year.
Right.
The fall is different. Most of the schools, most of the folks we are talking with, they're going to hold to these fall start dates for academics. What that means, are they going to have all students back on campus? Are they going to have a way of staggering the numbers? Are they going to have students wearing masks? Are they going to have a mix of online distance learning as well as on campus direct learning? So all of those decisions are going to be made at the local level by local school districts, local private schools. They're going to decide when it's safe to open up their campuses. And then when they do that, they will make the ultimate decision on when to bring the athletic teams back. So we're going to be continually monitoring, working with our schools, keeping track of what they have in mind. And at some point, and this is where the huge challenge will be, enough of our programs have returned, and then we would then implement a calendar for regular season and championship competition in the various sports. So that's really the step-by-step process. Got to open for academics first. That's who we are. That's what we're about. We're student athletes. Schools need to reopen. And when they do, and in the format that they open with, they then have to come to a point where it's time to bring the volleyball team back to campus, the cross-country team back to training together, the football team back, the girls volleyball team, et cetera, et cetera. Those would be decisions made by those local schools. And then, of course, the health authorities, the state and local health professionals that are providing the guidance and giving us the recommendations. We all need to follow their advice and their counsel as we go forward. And that's how this lays out here over the next few months.
Right. Now, not everybody might be on the exact same schedule for readiness. So if some districts are ready earlier than others, what do you do? Do you have to wait until every single school says we're ready for athletics?
There's not going to be an all clear horn. There's not going to be a moment when all 100% of all the sports teams are back on campus and fully functioning. What we're going to do, and that's where, again, a major challenge for us in a section as large as ours, is keep monitoring and tracking what's happening, so that at a point we could say there are enough of our programs back that we could go ahead and implement the calendar. Keep saying the same thing. You give me a date, I'll give you a calendar, and we're prepared for that. But
Right.
and everyone doesn't know what that date is, and that's the question that we can't answer on May 28th. But we need to let time work for us a little bit and keep letting time. This thing started a little over 2 months ago. We got hit with this a couple months ago in the middle of March. We're still 2 months from August 1st. We're still 3 months from September 1st. That's exactly the amount of time that we've been dealing with this since it began. So
Right.
I think we have to let that time work and continue to see how things go. And then for our purposes, then going forward, we just have to be, when there's enough programs that we believe we can return with the calendar, then we'll do it. I mean, I can't say what if it's 20% of our programs, I don't see us implementing a calendar. That's not viable. But certainly once we get north of 50% and maybe start climbing up higher than that, then certainly we want to be able to start the programs that are ready without holding back those that are not. And we have to respect those that don't start. If they don't feel that they're comfortable to do it, and their schools and school communities aren't ready, then we certainly respect that, and there will be no penalty for that. There will be no sanction if they don't return. But we're going to make sure that we make that decision when there's enough programs that are ready to go, and we can put it together so that at least the majority of programs can get involved.
Right. Do you expect that there would be the usual amount of summer training time, 2 weeks or whatever, for practices to occur before games would start?
Well, there may not. And the other point that's to note is that our schools typically in the fall, they have various start dates for school, but they also have students back on campus before school starts. Many of our programs have played games before school starts.
Right.
So that probably isn't happening. We're not hearing a lot about that. Our schools, if they're going to open up again, are going to open up when instruction starts and academics start. That's
Right.
another fact. That's another factor in the preparation for fall sports, is that typically they might be back the first part of August. Well, if they're not starting school until August 20th, they're not necessarily opening up August 1st to allow the sports teams. They're waiting to August 20th to start academics. And then a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, who knows, they would then say it's time to bring the athletic teams back. So that's where
Right.
the fall could be a little dicey. There's kind of a race against time as you look at the fall,
Hmm.
because unless people are really prepared to quickly put the teams back, as I said, I don't think we're hearing much about the campuses opening up for the first time since they were shut down for athletic teams. They're opening up the first time to get
Right.
academics started, and how they want to deliver academics, which is still, part of their decision-making process that they're going through here in the next few weeks, months, to
Right.
prepare for those days.
Have you heard much from coaches or student athletes about what kinds of things they're doing, the athletes themselves, to stay in shape? Are there any kind of organized instructions that coaches are giving athletes, or what?
Yeah, they are, and I think again, you get challenged in times like these to do things differently than you've done, and you have to explore different ways of getting the work done that you are used to doing when you're going face to face and in person. So,
Right.
lots of information about our coaches and how they're staying connected with their students, which we really appreciate them doing that. Making sure they're accountable, making sure they're there, and giving them workout instructions, giving them programs to follow, having meetings, reviewing playbooks. There's a lot that's going on in our schools
Right.
remotely, trying to keep our student athletes focused, and obviously keeping them on their academics and making sure that they're achieving academically and continuing to make progress academically, and then trying their best to keep sports alive and to keep the teams interacting with each other as best they can through platforms like this one. And there's a lot going on. And like I said, I commend our educators, our teacher coaches, for all the efforts they're making to stay relevant and to stay connected, and to just keep preparing for those better days that we look forward to.
Have you had any contact from the NCAA, any colleges, with information about how this might affect recruiting of high school athletes? I know athletes are going to be concerned. What's this going to do to my chances of getting a scholarship, that kind of thing?
Well, we haven't necessarily had direct contact. We've had some information passed along from the state office to us. Uh, the NCAA has also been modifying a lot of their calendars and their recruiting periods, and
Right.
some of the efforts that they make for recruiting high school student athletes. It's it's something that certainly is been a big effect on everyone too. They're still obviously sorting out what they believe they're going to do for fall sports and other things too. So, as I said, we don't necessarily have a direct pipeline with the NCAA or them reaching out to us or so forth. We're monitoring what they're doing too. We're keeping track of decisions they're making, and these various conferences that have now decided to allow student athletes back on their campuses, and under what guidelines they can come back, and what some of the college football programs have been talking about, and could they play games with less fans in the stands, and just a lot of the stuff that maybe you're all reading as well, just to
Hmm.
sort of have a sense of where the NCAA is.
Right. Now we have a team out here, the Paloma Valley High School girls basketball team had their best season they've ever had. They won CIF Southern Section title. It was only like the third CIF title the school had ever won. and they made it all the way to the state finals, which was canceled. Did the southern section have much input with the decision by the state on that? Were they pretty much ordered to not have that game?
You know, what's really ironic, Doug, is I was in Sacramento on Wednesday of that week. In other words, the championships were supposed to begin on Friday, and they were going to be Friday and Saturday in Sacramento. I was there on Wednesday, and I was actually in the arena on Wednesday night when they made the announcement that the NBA was shutting down. That was the night that the official was supposed to work the game in Sacramento, who had worked Monday night previously with the Utah team and had been exposed to the player in Utah that was tested positive, and then that, you know, everything went from there. But I actually was in Sacramento. I was with the state office folks. I was in their office that day, and I was with them that night. And on that night, on that Wednesday night, there was still talk of trying to continue with championships and have them without fans or with limited number of fans. And, you know, the issue kept changing by the hour almost at that point. And so the next day, the Sacramento County health authorities and, you know, the NBA had shut down, the arena was shut down. There was no way that they were going to be able to host the championships, even with no fans present. And with some of the teams, such as Paloma Valley and others, having to travel to Sacramento by Thursday for Friday games, or Friday, obviously, for Saturday games, you know, the state office didn't have a lot of time to consider any other different options. They just went ahead and canceled it. They actually had another problem where one of the other divisions on the boys' side still hadn't finished a semifinal game. And that semifinal game was supposed to take place, and that wasn't able to be played. So they wouldn't have even been prepared for that division to even have the state finals because they didn't finish the games leading up. So, you know, I was there, and I, you know, was in discussions with the executive director of the CIF, and he, of course, was in discussion with health authorities and his executive committee and legal counsel, and just a variety of things happening fast and furious as that afternoon went into the evening. And then as we all were sent away from the arena that night, it was pretty quickly decided on that Thursday morning that there wasn't a way to be able to accomplish state championships, and he had to make that terrible decision to cancel those.
Was there any consideration given to naming co-state champions in all the divisions?
Well, that's really a state decision because it was their championship. Yeah. So, you know, they evaluated that request. There were schools that believed that would be a really great way to recognize both teams and give them a culminating experience, you know, because it's a journey to get to the state finals. So that in itself, you know, could be celebrated. But the state office ultimately made the decision that they believe that, you know, state championships are conducted to have a winner, so to speak, and have that champion crowned. And they felt, at least in their organization, that they weren't willing to go to co-championships.
Right. Do you think when fall sports starts, is there a chance that there would be games played with no one in the stands?
There could be. And the point on that, Doug, is, you know, we've learned a lot since the cancellation of spring sports. And the primary thing we've learned is that people really want it all to come back. They want fall, winter, and spring. And they want us to do everything we can do to deliver that. And that's exactly where we are. As we're focused on that, determined to do that, motivated to do that, inspired to do that. We're going to do everything we can to make that happen. And if one of the decisions is that the games can be played but without fans, then I think our schools would be very strongly in favor of continuing to play. They would rather see us play than not see us play. And if the only way we can't is because of no fans, I don't think we would be in the position to say then there will be no seasons because we can't have fans. I think if it's deemed safe, and allowable for the student athletes to go out there and play, then I think we would support that and even go forward without fans in the stands.
Right.
Not ideal. I wouldn't like to see that, but as I said, if the alternative is no games, then I don't think we'd go there. I think we'd have games without fans.
Now, I know the CIF has a contract with Fox, right? They have like games of the week and that kind of thing. Would there be any chance of expanding that or allowing schools on their own to stream games if fans weren't allowed to be there, that kind of thing?
Yes, there is. And you know, Fox has been a partner of ours for 20 plus years and have been fantastic to work with. We're also very strongly aligned with the National Federation of High Schools Network, NFHS Network, who does all live streaming. There's a lot of other web entities and live stream entities out there that that do it, and certainly would be available to do it. The NFHS actually has a program called Pixelot, where you can have a camera installed in your gymnasium, in your stadium, anywhere that you want on your campus, and you can live stream any event you want through the NFHS network. So that might be a really viable opportunity for schools if they don't do it already. We have several schools that already have Pixelots, but you could get the Pixelot system, which allows you to stream any game. I mean, you can stream a freshman game, junior varsity, varsity, all of the sports that play in your gym, all the sports that play in your stadium. You just arrange for the camera, you get the camera installed, and then you just connect with the National Federation High Schools Network and say, at 7 o'clock on Friday night, we'd like to put the Paloma Valley football game on. And on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, we want to put the Santa Rosa Academy volleyball game on if they have the camera. So that's definitely a possibility for schools who want to get more events streamed and be able to have them seen by those who wouldn't be allowed to be there physically in person.
Right. One more thing I'm curious about, I wanted to ask you before we let you go here, is about something that happened in the last few years with the releaguing and the kind of, I guess you'd say, restructuring of the playoff process, to where now teams in the same league are not necessarily in the same playoff grouping, and schools don't have all their teams in the same league. Could you explain that a little bit? I mean, I know it's all about competitive balance, and like we had the Heritage High football team, I think, won every league game for 5 straight years. So we figured that they were going to be moved up or somehow, but I was caught a little off guard when I found out that there was now 2 or 3 different leagues involved in each school. What brought all that about, and how successful has it been?
Well, we believe it's been incredibly successful, and I would like to believe our schools do too, because they've just voted for 2 more improvements in the competitive equity system that were going to be natural evolutions in that system. But quickly, what it is trying to give every school's program an opportunity to compete in the division and the level that they should compete at. Previously, the entire league was placed into the same division. And so you mentioned Heritage's example. There are teams in that league that weren't at Heritage's level. But unfortunately for them, they would be put into the same playoff division as Heritage. They've already proven that they're not at that level, and yet now they're in a division of teams that are also at that level. So it wasn't the best system for every school. So now schools are given power rankings based on their performance, and then you can formulate divisions using those power rankings by school, no longer by league, and therefore grouping schools together in appropriate divisions where they can compete. What we were looking for before it started and what we expected is exactly what's happened. We've had closer games, especially in the earlier rounds of our playoffs, when there would be real mismatches, where Heritage would for example, be matched appropriately, but the second or third place team was playing a team like Heritage. And the game was a 40-point game, and it wasn't competitive, and there wasn't a lot of interest in that. Now, we're getting closer games, especially in the early rounds, because these are teams that should be matched up. And even more than that, more exciting than that, is how many schools have had opportunities to win championships that never had that chance before. You mentioned Paloma Valley's basketball. That's an example. They've been in the girls volleyball finals the last couple of years in that sport. So we're seeing so much of that throughout our section and across the spectrum of sports. Schools that have never, ever had the chance to compete for the championship are making the finals, are winning the championships, and they're getting that chance through this competitive equity playoff system. So we feel it's been very successful. I think you would ask our schools, and they would agree with you. And as I said, we've even made some strides now to make it even better. Our football coming up is going to use current regular season results. We're going to formulate divisions at the end of the football season that will be as accurate as they can be. They will be based on this upcoming season's results. And I think our schools are excited to see that. And we also expanded into an individual sport. We've never been able to do it with an individual sport. They've all been team sports. And now the sport of swimming just passed a proposal last week. We'll be doing competitive equity by school in the sport of swimming. And so that'll be interesting to see how that applies to an individual sport too. So exciting times, and in times that I think our schools really appreciate, our student athletes, our coaches, athletic directors, our fans. I hope the media appreciates it, because they're covering more compelling games now and compelling stories. It's been a real win-win. This is our 4th year of the competitive equity playoff model. And like I said, it's going to get better and continue to get better as we go forward.
Wonderful. Well, again, Rob Wigod, Commissioner of the CIF Southern Section, we thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. We know that you've got a lot of demands on your time and a lot of big decisions that are going to have to be made. So good luck with all of that. And we thank you again for your time today.
Thank you, Doug. It's been a pleasure. I'll look forward to talking with you again.